little wooden cutouts. I know that my little handy dandy scissors. I got some new scissors. I'm excited about those. And then I don't need all of this excess, and I don't want to sand it off, but you could use. So somehow or another, my footage got kind of messed around here, but bear with me. We're going to take this foam board and cut it to fit this 5x7 frame. This is a little bit of a shadow box frame. Back was broke on it. I got it from Goodwill, but I knew that the finish on it would be perfect for spring or summer usage. So I'm just going to measure that on the foam board, and you see me lining up my ruler here, and then you can use your scissors or you can use a knife, whatever you want to use to cut this down so that it will fit very snugly in the back, because we don't want it to press all the way through. Okay, so there's the frame I was telling you about. I love this frame. I have no idea where it originally came from, but for me it came from Goodwill, as well as that cream colored burlap, this flower pick, this pick, this ribbon. In fact, the only thing that I use that didn't come from Goodwill would be the foam backing and this little sign that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby last year. So I'm going to cover my piece of foam in this burlap. I'm going to trim it off so I have about an inch extra for the thickness of this foam board. I need to be able to fold this over and glue it down. Be sure if there's a part that you're using that has the tag on it, that the tag is on the back side and not against the burlap, because you will see that through the burlap. So I'm just going to pull a little bit over and press it down into that glue. You can use clamps or clips, whatever you have. I like to use my Crafter Square little pink and metal clamps there. They work good for these thinner surfaces. And they don't clamp down so hard that they make an indentation, so that's really convenient when you're doing a crafting project. Just going to roll that over and press it down. Protect your fingers. Sometimes I have my fingers that, did you see that? That's craziness. I had the protector on my pointer finger on the left hand, and I'm using my other fingers to press it down. Not my smartest move. Okay, so I'm just trimming off that line because it would drive me crazy not to. And I'm going to kind of turn that corner in and then press it up. That way there's no bulk hanging out on the side. Just kind of turn the corner in, press it down. You can trim off any of these little fibers that are bound to come out with burlap. It's just the nature of it. Lots of strings, so it is stringy. Okay, folding that one in too, pressing it down, and then holding it. You don't have to use the clamps. If it looks like it's going to stay for you, that's fine, but the fabric is a little on the thicker side. So I've found in my experience that it needs a little more help to stay where it needs to until the glue has a chance to grab it. Now you see this? This is not dirty. This is part of the burlap. It's just a darker fiber that's in there. And I'm trying to scratch it out. I'm trying to get it out. I did not pay attention when I cut it, so yeah, but that's okay because we're going to cover it up. So I'm going to take my hot glue, put a good amount on the back of this plaque, and then place it down. I bought 3 of these last year. I think they were 70, 80, or 90% off, but I knew I'd want to use them again. And it just so happens that the details on the bunny match the colors in the frame perfectly. So you can see here that this sits on the top of the outside. I don't want to have it completely down in there so that it is pressed against the front of the frame. So I'm just going to support the back with some strips of I think this was poster paper, yeah, some scraps of poster paper that I had and some hot glue just to hold it where it is, keep it from slipping all the way down. Don't worry about how it looks right now because that will be covered. Here's some felt sheet, some felt backing sheets that I have that a neighbor gave me. She was clearing out her crafting supplies, so she gave me quite a bit of stuff. And I am just going to cut that down because that's going to cover up the back and give us a little more of a finished look. This is a pretty thick felt too. This is almost as thick as the foam board, so it's really nice. Before we do that, I'm going to sandwich in my little hanger. And this is what I do with a piece of jute. Just make a simple little tie in there. And then I'm going to slip it through the original hanger that's on the back. This should give it all the strength that it needs to stay. I'm going to go in with some glue here and just really get kind of thick with the application and then press this down on the back. Grab some clamps to hold it down, and then once it is set up you can remove your clamps, and this is what we have so far. Now, because the hanger originally had a wire in the top, there are holes there. These are not holes that I was interested in spackling or using wood filler or anything, because I knew that I would be able to trim it out and give it more of a shabby chic look if I added a little bit of that antique decorative ribbon. You can get decorative ribbon at any craft store. But there's something about these old ribbons that I love. I'm going to trim that off a little bit, just using manicure scissors. I don't have detailing scissors, but these work perfectly for me. And now we're going to work on a pretty little bow to go on the top. This is a little bit out of focus, but it's actually like a peachy color. It's really a nice little ribbon. And it's pretty thick with the 2 layers, with the ribbon in the back and then the lace on the top. It's pretty thick, so it kind of holds its own there. Now all I'm doing is making 6 loops on each side to make the bow part, the top part of the bow. I'm going to use a little piece of jute scrap here. Little tip, if you save those little pieces of burlap that come out when you're doing your projects, those little strips that always come out, you can use those again for things like this, just little scraps to tie things off if you have a good strong piece of burlap. Sometimes they'll break if you bear down on them too hard. So just be sure that you've got a good piece. Test it out before you tie it. Just kind of pull on it and see if it's going to work for you. Put 2 or 3 knots in there because we're going to be pulling on this bow, and you want to be sure that that knot does not come out, or you'll have to start all over. I made this a small bow and just a simple bow because I like the simplicity, and I want the main focus really to be on that gorgeous little bunny in the center. I'm going to cover up the center with just a little piece of that same ribbon. Don't leave your little tails poking out. You want to get that nice and clean looking. Protect your fingers. It is a pretty thick ribbon though, so you will see me use the wrong unprotected fingers on here. It's almost like putting on those finger protectors. It's like putting a band-aid on, so then you favor that finger and you don't want to use it because you feel like you got a bobo on it. Well, that's kind of what I think my left hand is thinking. Okay, it has a mind of its own. So now we need some tails for that pretty ribbon, for the pretty bow, and I'm just going to cut 4 little strips and cut them at a slant rather than cutting them dovetails or flat or whatever, just because I thought I wanted to try something different. So this is the pattern that I like, and we're going to try this and just see, and you just give me your opinion. What do you think? Do you think that once this bow is together that this is a good look or no? Should the tails have a little more freedom, or what do you think? I'm always trying to do something a little bit different. I don't want everything that I make to look exactly the same. And I want to challenge you to be creative and try your own things. What do you think? Remember, there's really no right or wrong to crafting. It's your own creativity. It's what you love, what brings you joy. I say it all the time, joy, joy, joy. It's all about that. It's about happiness and doing what makes you happy. So this is what we have so far. And I think it looks good. Now I'm just trimming down some of the remnants here from that little bouquet of roses that I had. It had been used by another crafter apparently, and lots of little buds and flowers were missing from it. So I just picked it apart and I'm just using, what there is left. Picking the parts that will actually fit and not obscure the view from the little bunny, because I don't want that to happen. I don't want the flowers to become, the attention grabber here. I'm going to take some of the little rosebuds and place them around. I always want to leave in sort of my thought process instead of giving you a completely edited, start to finish, quickly hammer it out kind of video, because I want you to see how I'm thinking, what I'm thinking about when I'm crafting, what brings me inspiration and what looks good to me, and how you can move things around before you glue it. Move it around, see where you might like it first, what it looks like to you, and then, for me, I want to give you inspiration and you decide what looks best for you, and then you take that idea and do your own thing. That's my channel is making it my own because I want you to make things your own, not cookie cutter of what somebody else does, So when you have a foliage pick, be sure that you realize that they're plastic pieces or fabric pieces, and you can trim those down. If you need something to lay flat, just trim off one side that's going to be against the flat surface, kind of like I did on the bottom there, and just press it in and see it fits nicely now. And you'll never know because you can't see the back of it. I'm going to add a little greenery to this side too. And then again, I'm thinking, where do I want to put this other piece? And I'm going to add it, just that piece, right to the top of that bow. I'm going to show you how to make this on a much smaller budget. So we're going to take some tissue paper and I'm going to tape this over a piece of cardstock. I'm just going to use my tape, go around the edges of each side of this paper and just secure it down. What we're going to do is use our inkjet printer to print out a color photo of Peter Rabbit that I found, and I will link that for you. So I have a nice straight edge, and that's the end I want to go into the printer. Look at this beautiful picture. Love it. Again, the links are going to be below for you, and you can check that out on my Pinterest. I have lots of freebies over there. All right, and this is a thrifted picture that I got. Can you believe that? There's not even a chip out of it. It's in perfect condition. But I'm gonna wipe it off and get all of my little oils off from my hands and from the thrift store and wherever else. Get that all off. You can wash with soap and water if you want to, and you just let it dry really well, and then you can use it. I'm going to take this little mini cutting board. I had already measured this against the picture, so I know what size I'm going to need, and I'm just going to go ahead and trim it down. You want to use a pencil on the tissue paper, not a pen that might bleed. You don't want to make a mess. So go ahead and cut to the inside of the line. And originally I thought that I would leave this oval or egg shape on the picture, but you'll see I change it up just a little bit in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and save some of the other graphics from this picture. I'm going to cut out the shovel with the bird, and then there are some cabbages or lettuce, whatever type of greens that are on there that I wanted to cut out of the garden and use those as well. Because really, we call them dupes, but for me this is more like an inspiration. Pottery Barn was an inspiration, but you get the same type of a look. So this is where I decide, maybe I want to cut this down a little bit. In the end, it didn't really matter, but you'll see. So just watch how I do it and then decide which way you would prefer to do it. Cutting it all out, little messy, fussy cutting in the beginning, or just wait to the end. And I know that I want it to fit on this part of the picture. I'm going to add my Mod Podge, and I'm just using some glossy Mod Podge because this picture is glossy. I'm going to put this down and then lay my tissue down. You want to be careful because tissue is fragile. Where it is lifting away, I'm just going to cut little slits and then tuck it and overlap it. If it's wrinkled, it doesn't really matter. It's not as noticeable because this isn't a thick paper. This is just a tissue paper. And it's going to lay down nice and smooth. And what I'm doing now is just smoothing it out with my fingers to make sure that I don't tear it. And I do have some glue on my fingers. You can see there to the left. I have some glue on my fingers. That way I don't have dry fingers on that wet paper and tear it. Then I decide, how about adding some of these pieces of greens up here on the top of the picture to just kind of extend the color and the picture on the top. Because they're in our inspiration piece, they do have little bits and pieces throughout, so I thought maybe that would be good on our picture. So I'll show you how to do it, and if you choose not to use it, if you don't want to use the smaller pieces, you certainly do not have to do that. But if you want to, this is how you do it. So I'm just looking at where I want to put it, because once you put it down, you can't lift it up. Can't lift it, it will tear. So there was a little bit already on there. I'm just putting it down, and then I'm going to use my little soft flat brush and my fingers to place it down. I'm going to do the same thing just here and there where I think I want to put those pieces. Then I'm going to take some Mod Podge, go over the top with this. Again, this is a soft brush because a stiff brush would tear the tissue. You don't want to do that. Now I'm going to continue around and just put that wherever I want to put it. But I like it like that. I think it looks nice. Then I'm going to turn this picture around, and since it's still slightly wet from the Mod Podge, I'm going to prop it up on this wreath, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the little shovel piece with the little bird on the back. Alright, so now, because I don't like the rough edges around there, it's just, I don't like it. I don't think it blends in well. I just don't like it. I'm going to take a stiff brush after this is all dry, and I'm going to take some white paint, and I'm going to stipple it all around the edges so that I can create somewhat of a egg or oval shape. It's going to make it blend more into the picture, and it just gives it a better look in my opinion. But you can do this whichever way you like it. And you could certainly, without stippling, go around it with a brush and just make a stiffer, more rigid or exact line if you wanted to. But I want mine to be stippled and dreamy and watercolor and cottagey, and I think that I do achieve that in the end, and you can just let me know what you think about it. You see how that blends it out? I love it. I'll be using this method again, of course, because I really like it. And then once I start adding this down and putting it around, I thought, you know what? This picture would be really pretty if the entire thing was stippled. So I went ahead and took that same white paint. I think that is wicker white that I'm using. And I'm going to just take that all the way around to the outside and then continue around the entire picture. I do this also around the little greens that I have on the top. Kind of go around the edges of those, and that helps blend that out because it is darker. That's like a richer color than what it looks like on my piece in the middle. So I'm just going to continue all the way around. Now, if you don't have a stippling brush, and a lot of people don't have these brushes, you can most definitely use a sponge. And I have a little piece cut over there, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But you're just going to pounce it up and down. I'm not dragging it at all. I'm just pouncing up and down, and it leaves like bristle prints, and it's a really pretty texture. With a sponge, you want to be sure that you tear that so you don't have any hard lines on it, and then just start pouncing that all over. And it does really well. It does give it the same type of a look. And so here's a close-up so you can see what that looks like. And then you just continue around that print that's on the back, go around there. So now you have two options. You can use a brush or you can use a sponge. I wouldn't recommend a makeup sponge. I like these sponges, and I did get mine from Dollar Tree. It was a bath sponge. So now we're going to go on to the Essex Bunny, $29.50 to $39.50. Can you believe that? All right, I'm going to start off with some Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte Slate Gray paint, and I'm going to take my little ceramic bunnies. I have a little tea light ceramic bunny and then a larger one, and I'm going to take them outside and spray paint them. They don't have to be perfect. You can see I pointed out some little spots that were still white. And then once it is definitely good and dry, you don't want any tackiness left, you can go on to the next step. I'm going to take some of this paint. It's a dark gray, and I'm going to mix it with some baking soda. I don't have exact measurements for you here. You're just going to play around until you get to the right consistency. So I have probably a little over a tablespoon of the baking soda in the cap there, and then I've added some of the gray paint, and it's about a tablespoon of paint probably. I'm going to mix that in. I'm just using a little stick here that I use on my paints and my things like that just to mix it up. And then you can see the texture of that. Okay, it's kind of like a cake icing. You want it to be thick because you want it to have little bumps and grooves and nicks in here. For what I'm doing, I want this to have a cement look. Is it exactly like the Essex bunnies from Pottery Barn? No, it is not exactly like that. But it is an option if you like a concrete look. And I think it gives you the same feel in the end. But you can let me know when you see the end results. So I am just kind of dragging and going up and down and back and forth. I don't want to have an exact pattern on here. I want to go in all different directions, get in the cracks around the tail, the grooves, the feet, the ears, the eyes, the mouth, under the neck. And once you get all that down, you can just sit it down and then work on the part above it. See, I had a little fingerprint. I had to get that all cleaned out. You can get these little bunnies at Target Dollar Spot. You could probably get something like this. The Dollar Tree, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen them, but maybe. I've had mine for years. They've been white in my Easter collection for so long. Then we're going to take the larger one. And this one actually, to me, turned out better because it was originally more textured. You can see the little lines and dips, kind of gives it like a texture to the fur. So it works really well with this one. I'm just going to continue on just like I did with the smaller one and go all around them. And then when they're dry, this is what they look like, and you really want to make sure they're dry. I let mine dry overnight. They will dry to the touch sooner than that though. I'm going to take two short little, I call them stippling brushes, but they're stencil brushes. I'm going to take some white chalk paint and just go around where the grooves would be. Okay, now this was my first time doing this, So give me some grace here, because I talked to myself and I was thinking, oh my goodness, what have you done? This is not going to be, this is going to be a disaster. But as I keep going along, I kind of got a feel for it. And you'll see that as it progresses through here. So in the beginning, when you start doing this, and if it looks terrible, do not give up on yourself. It is just paint, and we can fix it, right? We can fix it. So I put this in fast motion so you could see here the progression without having to watch every single step and get bored with me. So just hang in there, hang in there. Okay, so this is what it looks like at first. And then I decide, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to add some more. By the time I got done with the little bunny, I had much more confidence in myself to move on to the larger bunny. And this one I was much happier with. Again, it goes in steps, and it takes some time to accomplish the look that you like with this technique. But I promise you, if you hang in there, it's going to get better. See, right now my bunny does not look so wonderful, right? It really doesn't look that great. But I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to layer it on just a little bit at a time. I think that's the key to this technique. Don't go too heavy-handed, because you see the difference when I use a lighter approach on this side? Isn't that better? I think that looks so much better, and it really does give it a concrete look. To me, to me it does. And maybe if you wanted to go with a lighter gray underneath, you could. You could mix that in and get a little bit of a lighter look, but I like this. Be sure that you get around the eyes, around the ears, the feet, the toes, the mouth, around the neck. And y'all, don't be so concerned about where your bunnies come from. You can get them anywhere. So here we go with the finished one, and I decided to go just a little bit heavier on this little one. Gotta accent his little nose a little bit better. I look like I'm punching him in the nose, but it makes a difference. Look at his little cute nose. And then a dry brush on top of that. And so I went a little heavier handed on the small one, and then not so much so on the large one. Now we're going to do a stone Easter bunny. $69 to $207. Nope. Let me show you how I did it. I'm going to add some chalk paint here, and I think this was my plaster chalk paint, and some baking soda. This time I kind of got the texture right the first time, and then I'm going to show you how it looks. I'm just using a little spatula to show you. It looks a little bit like a lighter, easier cake batter, or like frosting. Same situation here. It's going to be super thick. It starts to dry pretty quick. If you have a problem maybe with your texture, this paint texture sticking on to that ceramic, please seal it first. Use some type of a sealer. Get you some Mod Podge, something like that, and it'll help it stick better. With this terracotta bunny, it stuck perfectly. It was this I should have done this years ago. I should have tried this, but a lot of times in life we let fear keep us away from doing things, and we have doubt, and that carries over into our crafting. We're not always adventurous in everything we do, but it's okay to try it. It's paint. You can always start over. And if you get something from the thrift store, this little bunny came from the thrift store. How much money are you really wasting if you try it? You're still saving so much money compared to what you would if you went to Pottery Barn and got it. I'm not paying $27 or $207 for anything in my house, I promise. Not unless it's a big piece of furniture. Okay, so after it is dried, and again, it dried overnight as well, I'm going to take this sponge and tear it until there are no fine edges on it. I want it to be just kind of a loose look. I'm adding some of my antiquing wax down into a little bit of water, and then I'm going to use this sponge to start applying it. I'm going to just pounce this up and down, and I want to get all over bunny. Again, you probably want to seal your products first, your projects first, before you put it down, because if you are a little heavy-handed, and this is water that you're putting on here now, water and chalk paint, it's not water resistant, it can crack. I had a little bit of a problem on the smaller bunny, but I fixed it But yeah, I suggest that you go ahead and put a layer of Mod Podge on it or spray sealer or something like that so that it has some grip to hold on to. All right, so I put this in fast motion. You can see the progression. You can see that he's starting to look like he's aged, and I love that. He's looking like he's been sitting outside for a while. Yes, Mr. Bunny, bring it. I love it. I think it's cute. So after it is dried completely, then you can lightly go back over, like on the ears, on the feet, on the tail, any areas that they have, you know, a little more detail, go ahead and put it there. That's how it would age anyway. You know, pollen falls on it, dust falls on it, and this is how it would be. Make him nice and cute, both of them. Get it as aged as you want it to look, and then be sure you put it someplace and let it dry completely. I didn't seal my bunnies at all, and I love the way they look. They're so cute. Love them. See, I've been able to give them some new life instead of donating them. Yes. I love that age look. Right, we're going to start off with this cross. Now, I got mine thrifted, but you can definitely get the wire ones at Dollar Tree. But I'm going to show you how to do it if you have this kind. So it's about a 20 by 12. Then I'm going to take some burlap, just plain burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree. And we're going to wrap around all of this stuff. So this is pretty easy to do, but you're going to have to protect your fingers for sure because you're going to be using some hot glue and some sketchy little areas. So I'm just going to take the corner right here in the bottom, and we're going to start on the bottom part of the cross. So I'm taking my hot glue, touching the wire, and also putting it down on the burlap. Then I'm going to wrap halfway over the bottom and fold it under. You can see that I'm kind of folding it or cupping it under, just like this. And then in order to save and preserve the amount of ribbon we're using, I want you to be very careful and just try to overlap where the wired parts are so that you don't have a bunch of extra ribbon being wasted by wrapping it around and around and around and overlapping it like crazy. So you can see here I'm just pretty much trying to wrap it, tack it down with a little bit of glue, and just stretch that ribbon as far as it will go. Because I realize some people are not being able to get out right now. It's winter time, maybe you're snowed in. Let's get out some of those things that maybe you had at fall and go ahead and use those. Use up that stash that I know all of us crafters have. So you're just going to continue around like this, overlapping just you know, over the little wired area, just enough so that you cover up your frame like this. Now let's talk about some goals here. If you've been following me on Instagram, you know that my goals are 15,000 subscribers by August the 1st. Some people don't understand why this is important to me, but if you watch my channel and you're already subscribed, you probably already know why. I want to be able to show people that you can have a beautiful home without having to pay a fortune to make the pieces that you put in there. And you'll make them look exactly how you like them, uniquely to your own taste. So if you're not subscribed and you're watching this video, I would love to have you as part of my family. It's easy to do and free. So you can see how I finished off the back, and I'm going to go around on the arms and leave the inside open. So the same process as before. I'm going to choose a corner, doesn't matter which one. I'm going to put a little glue on the frame and a little glue on the burlap. I'm going to cup it under, and then I'm going to fold it around. Now don't be concerned about what we're going to do with the edges because I'm going to show you a way to make those nice and neat, and you won't see any of your hardware underneath. So just go ahead and continue around, very easy. And then when you get to the back, cut it off, and be careful and make sure that you're putting all your glued loose ends in the back. You don't want that on the front.
I want to tell you about my good friends who are doing a thrift flip road trip open challenge. It's hosted by Our Green Acres and Crafting Cousins. I'm part of it, and I hope you will be too. All right, so I'm going in here in the edges, just tacking it down with some glue. I'm going to roll it under so that it's close to the frame, nice and neat. You can see what we're doing here, and I'm just going to take that hot glue and kind of sandwich those pieces together. I folded it under, got a nice clean edge, and now I'm just using my protected fingertips to pinch this closed. It's going to keep that burlap ribbon from slipping off, and it's going to make it nice and neat. Now, to be honest, you can see here it takes a little more of your ribbon when you're doing the shorter arms and the top than it does on the bottom. And that's just because you don't have a lot of room to work there. But still, I didn't even use a whole spool to do this, so that's pretty good, right? All right. Now I'm just going to continue around like this. Again, this is easy to tuck down. You got the little edge where we folded it under. We're going to press it down into the inside and roll the edges and push them together. You can do this, right? Protect those fingers though. Be sure you get some finger protectors. You can get them at Dollar Tree, so they're $1.25, the dollar and quarter tree. And they're real easy to use. You just slip them on your finger. They're stretchy, so they fit most fingers. All right, same process. We're going to wrap this around and around and around. Now, I slow this down because I want you to see that at the top I have a little hook area here, and you might not have this, but if you do, just work around it. That's what I'm doing. I'm rolling it under, tucking it in. It's being stubborn. Use your glue where you need it. And then continue around. Now, if you're going to make a hanger for this, it would be great to put your hanger underneath before you wrap it with the ribbon so that it'll be concealed and it'll look nice and neat and high-end looking and finished. Y'all excuse my hair. I keep getting my head in the way. So you can see here what I've done, and I'm going to continue around, just making sure that that is stuck down in there. If you just have a wire wreath from Dollar Tree, you don't have to worry about all this little those little stick areas or the little, I don't know, vine areas that are poking through. But yeah, you get the idea though. So we're gonna press that down and make it nice and neat. I want the back to be neat looking too and finished. So I want to make sure that all my edges are nice and trimmed down. Now so far this is what we have, and this is the base that we have created. We've left the center open because this is where we're going to do our arranging. Now go and pick out whatever flowers you like. I know a lot of times you can find beautiful deep reds and purples in the fall, so you may have some of that in your stash. I have these picks from last year that were thrifted. Also the white branches, I've had those from last year. I've actually used them in a different wreath. But if you want to use fall, here is an example of one that I thrifted from fall. You can just take off the leaves that are fall specific and add on different leaves. You've seen me do that in other videos. That's so easy to do. Then you're going to want some type of a flyaway here. You can get that kind of stuff at Dollar Tree as well, or maybe in your stash already. I chose purple for my flowers because of, you know, it being a Christian holiday. So you do yours however you would like. Now you can just take those branches, like I know Dollar Tree has branches that you can get sometimes. I know they have pussy willow. I know they have dogwood. I've seen in some people's hauls. So you could use something like that if you would like. I love that this looks like dogwood to me. So I'm going to use it. I'm just crossing them end over end like I'm making a swag that's going to go at a diagonal. My idea is, like you see in, like outside of some churches, they'll have like a big cross and then they'll have the purple sash across. And so I wanted to use the purple flowers for that, and then the sideways swag would be representative of the sash. So that's what I'm doing here. I hope y'all like this. I have never done, to my knowledge, to my memory, I have never done a cross wreath. So I hope this is something that y'all like. And if you don't, you know, and this is not your thing, then you can certainly use the technique on other wreaths. So you don't have to worry about that part of it. Just go ahead and just take the inspiration from it. Maybe you just like the way you needed some information on how to wrap a wreath with burlap. Then you got it here. If you needed to know how to make a swag, you got that here too. So I'm just making little pins. I'm using the pins to stick through, twist them on the back, and secure these branches down where I need them. You can do it wherever you feel like the heavy spots are, or where it needs a little something extra to hold it down and keep it from, flopping around and coming away from your frame. This is actually going to be sort of a low profile wreath. It's not going to be a whole lot sticking out. We're not going to do a bow for it, but you certainly can. So you could actually probably do this on most screen doors. If you have a storm door outside, and you could actually put this on your door and it would fit without being crushed. So I'm going to continue around just like this, twist it, and then I'm going to take my clippers and cut through each of those wires and press it back down into the frame. You don't want this scratching your door, and certainly if you want to go ahead and cover this up with a little extra ribbon or something, you can. Y'all need to join us in our community tab for giveaways and fun. We're doing weekly giveaways. I'm learning all about my subscribers, and we are having a blast over there. Alright, so just continuing around. I do this with my arranging. I just move things until it looks exactly like I want it to look, and it gives me the feel that I like. So now I'm going to start with these beautiful deep purple hydrangeas. I'm going to cut the stems off because we don't need all of that in there. It's just making it too hard on us. Follow me on my social media. I'd love to see you there. Alright, so I'm going to take one and put it kind of in the corner on the left. So if you look at that little section there that's open as a box, this is in the left corner, upper, and this is in the right lower corner. And I'm just going to push them together. And the reason I'm doing this is because I kind of want it to look like one big flower. And I think since they're the same color, it does kind of have that effect. Now I'm going to take my branch here with my little berries and just cut that down and cut it apart because I only have one and I want to be able to spread this out over this swag, and in this way I can do it. So I'm just going to press this up into here. Now if you can get in there around the branches, you don't even have to use any hot glue in this area. Just press it up in there, and you can also use the overlapping parts of your burlap to hold in your florals. So I'm just trimming off the little extra stuff there and putting it down in the same way that I would if I was making a swag. I'm doing it on the top corner and I'm doing it on the bottom corner, or if you do it on the left, do it on the right, that sort of thing. That's the way I want this wreath to look. And see, look at that. I pushed those closer together and just immediately made it look like one big flower. That's so much better. But that's why you want to look at it from all angles, and above it and beside it and to the left, to the right, to make sure that it looks exactly how you want it to look like you designed this with intention in mind. And so I noticed here where it overlaps that there is a gap, and I do not like that. So I'm going to fix that by simply pulling out some flowers that are kind of extra, that are kind of, you won't be missed in that area. And I'm going to place them down right here on the branch, and I'm not putting them straight up. I'm doing them kind of to the side and facing to the side like the rest of the flowers so that they fit in. So this is what I'm doing at this point, taking it, looking at it from all different directions to see what I need. And I feel like I need more flyaways. So I found these beautiful picks. They were in my little stash that I have with a bunch of extras that I cut off of other things. And I'm so glad that I picked it up because the colors look beautiful with this. They just are perfect. So because these are on just plastic, I'm just pulling these apart in little sets of 2s and 3s. But if you have wire in yours, just cut them with your little wire cutters there. I've got some little cutters right there that I got from the thrift store. And then see how I just press that one up into the frame here. It's into the ribbon and right into the frame. And it stays right where it needs to be. If you're in a place that gets a lot of wind and it's not protected though, you might want to do a little extra gluing. And certainly if you're going to sell this, you would want to glue this in place. But for my purposes of teaching you and inspiring you, I am just going to get this project done and tell you how to do it the right way. How about that? Okay, so we have some down on the left side, on the left top, and then we have the ones that we placed down on the right, if you're looking at it on the right. So when you have a pick that doesn't have a long enough stem, just grab a piece of plastic, a stem, another piece of floral stick, whatever you have, and just wrap it up. Add to it, and that's what I'm doing right here. I know I need a little more height, so I'm taking my floral tape, which, by the way, if you don't know, is waxed. You have to pull on it to make it stick. It's not sticky like regular tape. You pull and twist, and that's how it sticks. It releases the wax, and it will stick to your project. So now that's perfect. That gets it right up where I like it. Simple little hack there. And this is our final project. You can definitely put a bow on here if you'd like, but I like mine simple and rustic as
You're going to pick out some greenery that you would find on a walk in a forest or in a park. A lot of this was thrifted, and some could have come from Dollar Tree at one point. Been in my stash a while, so I'm using what I've got. Things that look like you would see them in the spring. Okay, and then you've got this cute little sign. I have sanded off the glitter, and I have roughed it and scuffed it up on all of the surfaces here. So on both the carrots, and I'm going to do the same thing on his face. Alright, so we're going to move the tag and also remove your hanger. I'm going to take some of this wired burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and this one as well, the polka dots. Love this. Here's some thrifted ribbon that I got from the thrift store. I had put it back in my stash for Halloween, but it's perfect for Easter. And then this pretty green. These have the little tags with the little pointy plastic things on them, so you can just push those out. You don't even have to cut them. You can use pliers to remove these, which I started off with, but they come out super easy if you just pull them. But be careful, those little staples are very sharp. If there's any pieces left in there, go ahead and cut those off. And then, this isn't necessary, but it was necessary for me. I had to have those backs sanded down. And when you sand them, it's so satisfying because the little holes just disappear completely. I don't know if you're into that kind of thing, but yeah. My kids have got me into those satisfying videos with all the gel and the goo, and yeah, I watch it with them. Okay, so going right along here with the sanding, we're going to take all the little edges mainly off of this bunny, because I'm going to add something and I want to be sure that we can age this bunny a little bit more. He's already pretty rustic looking, but I want to add a little more age to him. It just softened the look of the black lines on his face and on his nose, and I like that look. I think it's better for the rustic feel that I'm going for. So here's some of that Waverly Antique paint or wax, whichever one. Gonna add it on a wet wipe. Just mix it really well, just kind of blend it up, thin it out, and then I'm just gonna start applying it on here. You see how it instantly gives it kind of a brownish aged color? That's what we're going for. And when you go around the edges with that, on that bare, I guess, whatever the backing is underneath the picture, it gives it a more defined kind of edge or border, and I like that. Alright, so with my thrifted wreath that I've had forever and repurposed several times, you guys have got to do that. You really can save a ton of money if you just repurpose your items from season to season. You'll see me not using very much glue, mainly just putting these pieces in here in the wreath. That's the good thing about these vine wreaths too. They really hold on to your stems. You might consider, if you're putting it outside where you get a lot of wind, maybe using some wire or something to hold it down in there, but it can still be removed and you can still use your wreath again. So I'm just going to put the main weight of the greenery to one side of this wreath. You can do it any way that you like. Then I'm thinking about where I might want to put my little sign. And continuing to move around the greenery here and there. Now these I think are supposed to be magnolia leaves. I can't quite remember what these are. This dark green, smooth looking piece. It bothered me that the green was flipped around and it looked kind of cheap. So I'm just trying to move it around where I can get the dark side on the outside. I'm going to take these picks of fern and put these in here. It is my understanding that you can get these like a cheaper version of these fern picks at Dollar Tree. I haven't seen them at mine. So guys, be sure that you are checking out your thrift stores for florals and for greenery, because I'm telling you, I have gotten some beautiful, beautiful pieces just right out of the thrift store. And when you use the Goodwill outlet, you pay by the pound. So you can really save a lot of money and get a ton of florals. They're so lightweight. And believe me, I get a ton every time I go. My basement will prove that. Just one walk through and you would see I have a wall of florals and greenery. Okay, so I'm just going to straighten these pieces out. They've gotten kind of bunched up. I want them to look a little more lifelike, so I'm just going to bend them apart, give them a little airiness, and let those be our little flyaways. I think it was Ramon at Home where I got the flyaway verbiage from. And I really like that because they just kind of fly away. They just poke out and do their own thing, and I like that. Those little picks give a little bit of brightness to all that dark in there. But I love this woodland rustic look. When the wreath is complete, I do go back in there and pull out one of those picks on the side, because when you see in the end the pictures, you can see that it just looks a little too heavy in that one particular area. So I did remove one of those picks, and I do like it better. All right, these I picked right out of an old floral arrangement at the thrift store. I just pulled out the pieces that I wanted and left the rest for whoever could use it. And again, these little pieces, they look springy to me, and they are bringing a little bit of light into all of that dark foliage there. But don't get me wrong, I love the dark foliage, but against that dark wreath underneath, I feel like it needed a little more light, so those little pieces will do that. And they're also little flyaways also. If you're ever watching my videos and you don't want to watch the whole process of me doing something like that, you can click up top on the little dots and you can speed it up. You can choose what speed you like, but I will warn you, sometimes I talk fast and it might make you dizzy to listen to me at that speed. Okay, so we're going to put these pipe cleaners, glue, and a little tab of paper just to secure these down on the back of these pieces of sign so that we can put them down safely and securely on that wreath without having to necessarily glue them. Then we can use these pieces again for another project, and we can use the wreath again and all of our greenery again. You're saving a ton of money. Okay, so here's our little bunny, and we're just gonna nest his face down in there, almost like he's peeking out of the bushes. The happy carrot is going to go on the top, a little bit off center to the left, and then in the bottom center, we're going to put the Easter carrot. All right, protect your fingers. This is a mesh, it's burlap. That glue will go right through it and cook your little fingers and take your fingerprints right off. So be sure that you are using something to protect yourself so that you can live to craft another day. All right, we are making a bow now for our bunny. We are going to stack this little bow, and this is what we're going to do. Green is going to be our longest section on the bottom. We're going to decrease it by about 1 inch and put our next loop which is our burlap, the brown, and then we're going to do the same thing for this checked ribbon. Okay, so here we go. You just put them together like that, and it's going to be a stacked bow just like that. Now we need something to go in the center. We're going to tie it down, and then we're going to add a centerpiece over that, which is the part that you could skip if you would like. What I'm doing now is just kind of folding it over, trying to make sure that I'm in the center before I make a tight tie in here. If you make a little bit of a looser tie, then you have a little more flexibility to move those bows around so you don't have a lopsided bow. Okay, so we're going to make a loop in the middle. It's going to be the center of our bow. Same process, but with just a tiny bit of fabric or a tiny bit of ribbon. I don't know if I mentioned, these are all wired ribbons, and you will see that when I fluff it out. This is why we like wired ribbon. See how you lift it up and it stays where you put it. Isn't that cute? Then you can fluff it out in different directions. If you choose to use all of the same color, you can certainly do that. I think a little checkered bow would be adorable on this wreath by itself if you wanted to do that. But I like the layered look, and all of the colors in here really match the wreath well. And they give me the look that I'm going for, which is, you know, the woodland rustic look. You're going to press that down for a moment. If you have a clamp available, go ahead and grab your clamp. Fortunately, this one will fit right between the bunny's ears perfectly. And let that be your extra hand while you move on to another piece. So we're going to cut 5 to 6 inch segments of a coordinating ribbon that we used in the bow, 4 of each color. And I made it right to the end of my ribbon. So you know what that means? Yep, I'm going to have to go back to Dollar Tree. Okay. Now, you can stack them and dovetail them just like this to save some time. Do the same thing on the other end, or you can do them one at a time. Now I'm going to go in here with my orange and white. Cut those off too. 4 pieces, just as before. Stack those, fold them, and dovetail them on both ends. Oh, I didn't use green. That's right. I was out of green, so I just used these colors. So you're going to have 4 of 2 different kinds. This is a really simple little part. You're going to take your pipe cleaner, cut it into segments. I cut mine into thirds. You want enough length on the pipe cleaner to wrap around to secure that little tail, and then still to be able to tuck it inside and secure it in the wreath. So now you can bend out your little tails whichever way you want them, and this is what it's going to look like. We're going to do 4 of these. I pull them down in the loop, you know, the bent section. I pull them down tightly with my fingers. See how I pull them tight? And then I twist them tightly so I can manipulate them and twist them out and fold them without them slipping out of the wire. So you want to do this pretty tightly. You can use floral wire for this if you don't have any pipe cleaners, and you can certainly use, you know, a different color if you want to. Maybe green would be good. It would probably disappear down in there, but the way you fluff these out, you won't necessarily see them. So I'm going to seat these down in just some random areas in the wreath. If you need a little bit of something to hold it, go ahead and add just a dot of glue. A little bit goes a long way with hot glue. And just choose your areas around the wreath that you want this. Looking back, the bow that I'm putting in now probably should have been a little bit lower down. If that other piece, that piece of extra greenery was out of there. Greenery. if that piece of greenery was gone. But that's okay. I think it looks cute the way it is. And then we're going to add one right here. And this is what we have. So here's some pliers we're going to need, and just one of these little round signs. You can get one at the Dollar Tree if they still have them available. That one's actually thrifted. This is a canister that I got from Target on clearance a few years ago. I got some thrifted eggs and a thrifted wooden carrot. This pick was also thrifted. I just very recently picked this up. Lots of pretty colors there. So if you're not into pastels, this is going to be the perfect one for you. This is a recycled foam block. And we're going to start by just taking the lid off this canister. We will not need it for this project. So if you get a thrifted canister with no lid, that is perfectly fine. You won't need it. You could use a crock for this too, I think would be pretty. I'm going to use my metal ruler from Dollar Tree and just cut a section of this off. Cut it in pieces, wherever you can get it to fit inside of your container. So I'm going to cut a few more slices just to make sure that I have plenty of area to put my floral picks when I get ready to do the arranging. So I'm just slicing it up a little bit. Now we've got good area to work with. Nice snug fit, so nothing is going to flop around when we start putting it together. Alright, so I'm going to start with this pick, and there was no like a tag or anything on here, so I'm not really sure where it came from. I feel like it came from a craft store rather than Dollar Tree because it is so full. Yeah. But you can get a couple of picks maybe from Dollar Tree that you like and use those. They have a nice variety of spring picks and flowers. Just get the colors that speak to you, that you really like when you see them. If you find yourself smiling, those are the ones you want to get. I'm clipping these off, and I'm trying to be sure that I cut my stems at a variety of heights just in case I want some to be taller than others, though it really won't matter too much once you push them into this foam because of the depth of the canister. Okay, so I'm going to cut off a couple of pieces of these stems too because I want to use these to hold my eggs. So I'm going to repurpose these wire stems for that. And there were a couple of flowers that had already been used by the previous owner of this bunch of flowers. So I'm just going to move some foliage around too, and so that each stem will have some foliage. Now, in order to get this to fit in the bottom of these little eggs, I'm going to use my glue gun and carefully just run that right in there. The heat from the glue gun is going to melt that and open us a little spot so that we can get through that plastic. These are coated in plastic. And have access to the foam center. We put the stick inside of there. If you needed to, you could just glue something in, depending on what kind of picks you use. If you use the eggs, like the little plastic eggs that you put treats in, Easter treats in, then you could probably just use hot glue, or maybe you could poke a hole in the end of those too, and a little hot glue to hold them in place. I wanted to be sure that my picks all had a little greenery on them too, so that they blended in well and made the arrangement a little bit fuller. So I've just picked 3 eggs of the colors that coordinate, and I'm just going to get those together, and then see, I'm going to slide that one off and put it on this one. I want a nice full arrangement. I don't want to be able to see down around any of my flowers. So I've changed my camera angle here for you a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to start in the middle with one of the orange flowers. And then kind of work in a triangle pattern here. You can bend those stems. They're wire, so bend them a little bit so that the head of the flower, can go in different directions if you'd like. Make them look a little more natural. Not all flowers grow straight up. They're seeking the sun, so they will bend in order to get to the light that they need. Little biology lesson there for you. Then I'm just adding the blue around, and then some of the little picks were kind of little flyaway picks. I want those to be higher than the rest of them. They really stick out of there, make it look interesting. And here are the little egg picks. I'm just going to place these in at different spots and at different heights. There's a little empty spot right there that needed a little something. And remember what I always say, turn that arrangement all around, look at it from all angles. Get above it and look down on it too to make sure you don't have any holes in there. Okay, so we're going to need something to hold the sign and the carrot up. And we're just going to use some dowel rods to get those things in shape. So I've removed my hanger, and I'm looking to see how long I'll need this to be to get that sign above my arrangement where I want it to be. It's a little bit heavy, but it shouldn't push all the way through that floral foam. So I want to put it about that height. I'm going to use a little bit of this black ribbon since it's going to be above the arrangement so that you don't see that wooden stick when you turn your arrangement or see it from the other side. This way, if you put it in the center of your table, you still have something, a little bit nicer to look at. I couldn't get the tag off. You would want to remove your tag. I'm just going to go back over that with a black marker and color it in so that you can't see that white under there. So I'm putting a good amount of glue here so that I can press the stick into it and it will get all around on that stick. I'm going to go back and forth in a little zigzag across there to make a little bridge over it so it doesn't break off. And then I'm going to cover this up with just some pieces of ribbon that I already had, like scraps. And it's black, so it works. But normally I would probably just use some type of paper or something on the back, but not if it's going to be seen. You want it to look a little more neat. So there's some glue that's kind of pushing out of there, and all you have to do is take your silicone fingertips and your fingers and just kind of work at it, and it'll rub right off the back. It'll be a little bit more difficult once the glue is dried, but it can still be removed, depending on the if you have a painted surface or a plastic surface or what you're working with. Okay, so I know I want this to go in the top of the arrangement, maybe a little off center. Look how well that matches. That looks so cute in there. Just bending that pick that egg is on. Looks pretty good, right? Looking at it from all the edges. I've decided that I want to add a bow around here. So I'm just taking some of this, I think it's like a burlap tubing, like a mesh tubing that you can get at Dollar Tree. I can't remember what it's called, and it was off of the spool, so I can't give you an exact name, but it's open in the middle like a straw. It makes a nice little bow, so I just put a simple shoelace bow there, and I'm going to trim it up. If your bow tries to twist, all you have to do is take a little dot of hot glue and arrange it on there. So then I was trying to decide where I wanted to put the carrot. And I've decided that I want to put it in the side. So I'm going to break off one of my dowel rods to make it a little shorter. I've already chosen the best side of my carrot to be on the outside. And I'm going to add some glue here. Now if I had orange ribbon, I could cover that up. But once it is dried, I can just, and you see I put the little zigzag on there too. Once it is dried, I can just easily poke that down into the arrangement. And because of where I'm putting it, you won't be able to see the back of the carrot. Just adding that in. trying to find some kind of balance when I add it in so it doesn't look just like it's randomly hanging out on the side. You can take some moss and go around the edge of your container if you would like so that you won't see anything. But I've decided that instead of doing that, I'm going to add a little bit of this eucalyptus pick that I had left over. I've already been working on this piece in other projects. So I have plenty left, and I have another complete pick to use for later. So just pick the pieces that you like. I'm trying to pick the ones that have more of metal on the stem than just a plastic piece, because if you get a plastic piece, you're going to have to find something firm like another dowel rod or pick to wrap it around to get it to stick into your foam. So if it has a metal piece on the pick, it will easily puncture the foam and stand up where it needs to be. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm just showing you that because some parts of the pick are going to be more of a, kind of a flimsy plastic. They're not going to stick in there for you, and they're going to just kind of, you won't have as much control over it. So I've picked off the bottom layers, and I'm just going to add these pieces in where I feel like it would be in a good place. So around the bottom where there's an opening, and then some picking out of the top. You see, I'm looking all the way around as I go for spots that look like they can need it, that they could use a little extra something. And you can see, I'm looking for those dark areas that need something. And when you put the greenery in there, it's going to brighten that up and bring your eye back to the outside of the arrangement where all the exciting stuff is happening. That's what we want.
We're going to be using Make sure that it is over the stem part of your flower or your greenery. Push it through your wreath, and then on the back just then start pulling out the tails and the bow. I like to start on the bottom of very, very coordinated. And then we're just going to go ahead and use that ribbon. one cruffle for each of these segments. So each of these little ties or chenille stems, I don't know why breathe in the same technique. Press it down into the center and twist it. everything because the ones underneath you can't see as well. I am pulling all the flowers off of their picks, and this is kind of where I decide that the orange is not the best color. And you'll garden and brought into your home. And of course, when you do that, you are bringing in the greenery that goes along with it. for me personally, that is. So I'm just going to take this chalk paint and go all over here. I only used one coat. Be sure that you get
Okay, so we're going to start off with these supplies. Going to have a variety of ribbon. This one came from the Dollar Tree from the Easter section, and it is a wired ribbon. This is thrifted ribbon and it has no wire in it. And then this ribbon came from also the Dollar Tree, and it just came over in the garden section. Little polka dots. This pick came from Dollar Tree. And then this one and the other floral one came from Goodwill. If you recognize that sign, you can let me know, that tag. I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm going to use a sign that came from, I believe, Dollar Tree, but it's very old. And then this bag from Walmart that I got on clearance last year. You use any bag that you want. Dollar Tree has a lot of nice ones. And you can also get them at Walmart for fairly inexpensive. So I'm just going to cut off that hanger and decide which side of the bag I want. One side has white writing and the other side has silver. For my style and taste, I'm going to use the white. Just want to cut this out. Use whatever type of tool you want. Like one of those scrapbook cutters would probably be pretty easy and quick to use for this too. But I cannot find mine. I do not know what I did with it. So then I want to decide where I want this to be centered on that board. What part of this graphic from the bag do I want to be on my sign? So I'm just kind of moving it around the board to see about where I would need to put it. And once I get it there, I'm going to crease that paper so I'll know where to put it. I'm making sure it's even so I don't have any crooked areas, and then I'm just going to cut it out. Do the same thing on both ends. And that is what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to generously apply my glue stick here all over. I love the purple vanishing stick. You can really see where you lay that down, and I like that. So I'm going to place it where I want it, and there is a little bit of room up there on the top because I cut it a bit shorter than I anticipated. Y'all excuse the it being out of focus. I'm going to correct that in just a minute. I didn't realize it at the time. I wear glasses and I don't use them like I should. So yeah, looking through that tiny viewfinder, sometimes I don't see things the way I think everybody else sees them. So then I'm going to take this sanding block and go ahead and finish off the two sides. Makes a nice little finished edge. Okay, so this is what it looks like without any type of border. This is some thrifted. I don't know if that's like a rope type trim, but that's what it looks like to me, and I think it's going to look really good with the white truck and the white print on here. So I'm going to protect my fingers and get my glue gun and just start laying down a line a little bit at a time. Glue dries pretty quickly, so I'm making a border up there, and you can see where I have that empty space that there's no bag piece on, and that's where I'm putting that little piece of rope. This is just going to trim it out nicely. You don't have to do this. It's just an option to give it some dimension. When you make the corners, when you use rope-like trims, it's always kind of helpful if you have a clip or something that you can hold it in place, unless you want to hold it for a minute. I try to work quickly because I never know when I'm going to be interrupted when the kids are home. So yeah, time saver. And I'm just going to do this all the way around until I get back to that corner. So that's me out of, see the little pink clip? Those come from the Crafters Square in Dollar Tree. I love those little clips, and they have little silicone ends so they don't stick to the glue. How's weather where you live? Are you getting some sunshiny days? Is a lot of rain? I know some people still get snow right now, but we are not. We are having nice days, and the highs are in the 70s, and there's lots of sunshine, and we are really loving it. My family, my dog, everybody just seems like the mood is a little bit lighter. Okay, so I'm just going to try to cut that and add a little glue on the end so that I can get that little fuzzy corner smoothed down. That gives it a more finished look. You can't see where it starts and ends. I'm going to remove those clamps after I've given them some time to set up, and I'm going to start working on an embellishment for this sign. You can leave yours simple if you don't want to put, bows or anything additional on yours. You certainly don't have to. So I'm starting off with this ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I'm making about a 5-inch loop with about a 5 or 6-inch loop tail. Since it's printed on one side, I'm going to pinch it in the middle and then twist it so that I place the printed part up on the top. I'm going to cut that section off. You can use a clamp to hold it in place, or you can hold it in your hand while you begin to layer it. So I did the same thing with this ribbon. Then you can add it to your stack, or I don't know what I was thinking right there. And then we're going to go for the third layer of our bow, and it's going to be exactly the same. The paint is thicker on one side, even though you can see it through the burlap. The paint is thicker on one side, and that's the side I want to show. So twisting that in the middle is going to give me the pretty side up for my bow. So now I just need to decide which way I want to layer this, what bow I want to go on top, and then what I want to go on the bottom. Now, since this top bow does not have the structure from wire, I decided to put it on top. And I'll show you how I make it look a little less floppy here in a minute. I'm going to use a zip tie. You can get a big bag of these anywhere. And they're very convenient to have around the house for other projects as well, not just for crafting. And then of course you want to fluff that bow out, get an idea of how it looks, where you want all of your little loops and tails to be, and then trim off your excess. Of course you could use floral wire or pipe cleaner if that's what you have available. I don't edit out all of the bow fluffing and prettiness because I feel like it's helpful to see, because sometimes when you make a bow, it doesn't immediately look good. It takes a little bit of fluffing, it takes a little bit of attention and time to get it looking like the end result that you want. So I want to show you how my bows start so you can see how they look in the end, and that you shouldn't give up and just throw it away and toss it out and start all over again, because you can definitely make something better of it. You can move these pieces all around. See there? That's much better. Then I wanted to put it in the corner, but putting it in the corner was going to overlap my truck, and I did not want to obscure my little Easter truck. So I decided, okay, well, I can raise it up a little bit if I use a popsicle stick and just attach it there. And so now you can see more of my sign, but I still have my embellishment on the top. So of course we're going to be using hot glue for that. And then a little piece of this ribbon to go over the top. That's just going to give it a little extra support. The bow doesn't weigh very much, so I don't need a whole lot of reinforcement or a super ton of glue over there. Just a little bit will work. Alright, so when you have the tails, make sure they're all facing up, that the pretty side is up, and make a little spot for the bow to attach to the popsicle stick. You can do this with any sign, or you can do this with a wreath as well. You can put a popsicle stick in there to move your bow to the outside or the inside, whatever makes it easier. It gives you a little more space so that the main attention can be on the sign. And use a clamp there, like I'm going to. And this is, I think these came from the laundry section in Dollar Tree, if I'm remembering correctly. And they make really good clamps for things that are a little bit thicker. So now I'm going to put a little bit of floral in there. And I'm choosing what pieces from these picks that I think would look the best. These picks are gorgeous, and there's several different kind that are similar to this at Dollar Tree, and they have several different little pieces. They're really pretty. Gives you a lot of variety. So I had to decide, did I want to use yellow, white, green, or peach for this project? And I think that the peach is going to be the winner here. There is a peach and rosy colored rose in the back of that truck, or a flower. And I think that that one's going to be the one. So instead of curling my tail straight under, I've kind of bowed them in the middle and curled the ends out like a wave. That's how I want those to be. And I'm trying to get the bow exactly how I want it so I can put the flower down. You can put some curve in these ribbons just like that. You just use a metal piece or the edge of your scissors carefully and just pull down while holding that ribbon, and it'll put a curl. It has to be a stiff ribbon. This is not going to work like on a satin. This is like a polyester type ribbon. So it has some stiffness in it already, and that's what you'll need to do for that. But it works, and there's no wire in it. So I'm just showing you there how it coordinates. That flower matches a square in the ribbon, and it matches some of the flowers in the back of the truck. And I'm just going to plop it down right in the center of the polka dot bow. And I think that is precious, just like it is. There I go again, arranging that bow. Okay, so I've taken the little yellow pieces and I'm going to add those. I'm just going right across from each other. Give it a little balance that way. And then there are some fern pieces here. Sorry, I'm out of the camera angle here. There we go. That's a little bit better. Just going to tuck those in between the bow and the flower. And then same thing, I'm going to go across from it and add it here. And then to put a little extra something on the other side, because I don't want just all the weight to be in that top corner, I'm going to add a tiny little bit of greenery and a little surprise down here in the corner. Because these eggs won't lay flat, they are foam and they can be cut. So I just took my scissors and I am cutting off like a third of that egg. I'm going to pick a little bit of that foam out of there and reshape it. And that way, once I get my, see there? The Easter Bunny dropped us the egg off early. I'm going to add that there. And then the yellow piece, this is the same greenery that we have in the top under the bow. And I'm going to add some blue here and put it down right on top of that. Now, after Easter is over, you could always take the egg off, or you could leave the egg on and just use it again next year. Because the bag does say Easter, so you might not want to leave it up all spring. Now we need a hanger for this. So I'm just using a scrap piece of pipe cleaner that I had. And I'm going to have a long straight piece. This way you can slide it back and forth on your command hook or your nail in order that it will stay balanced. Because if you put it right in the middle as a single little piece, then it may pull to one side, and you don't want that. So this way you can move it up and down until you get it balanced exactly.
all the way. You know, they look nice, and they're going to have the lowest profile as possible.
face. Okay, you can use that by itself without the sign. And I love that idea. You can just swap things around. I love it. Your carrot tops if you wanted to. I'm just making a hole here with tree for pool noodle. Sit down. And I chose the orange that's a little the orange on for hours.
Your hard work and creativity brought to light.